So Epic Games Store continues to be a controversial topic. People don't like the way the store is buying out third-party exclusivity, especially those that promised would be on Steam, that were crowdfunded to be on Steam, only for Epic to step in, offer a bunch of money, and the developers to not hold up to their promise and just take that deal without consideration of the community that helped build their game in the first place. So there's just been a lot of contention in that regard. People just don't appreciate what Epic is doing in terms of splitting the PC base. So a lot of people just don't want to support Epic anymore. And that brings us to today's story. So there's this indie developer from a studio called Unfold Games, and they created a game called DARQ. And the guy behind this studio, his name is Vlad Response, and he's a solo developer who created this game on his own, which is pretty damn impressive. And this game launched a few days ago on August 15th, 2019. And there's been some discussion surrounding the fact that this developer decided to turn down Epic's offer for an exclusivity deal in exchange for money. And he explained this in a Reddit post published 4 days ago in an AMA. So here's what Unfold Games' explanation reads like. Epic reached out to me right after I released the trailer announcing Steam release date. At that point, DARQ was in top 50 most wishlisted games on Steam. I felt going for an exclusivity deal would show that my word means nothing, as I just had promised the game would launch on Steam. Besides, DARQ page was on Steam since November 2018, and a lot of people patiently kept it on their wishlist since then. I thought it was a bad idea to disappoint all those people and prove to the world that my announcements mean nothing. Epic made it clear that they reached out to me with an exclusivity deal. I politely turned them down before we had a chance to discuss any details, money offered, etc. I asked them if they would be willing to sell DARQ non-exclusively, and they explained that at this point in time it's not something they can do. It was a polite and professional exchange. I have nothing bad to say. It just wasn't the right fit for DARQ. So immediately, this developer garnered a lot of praise because for once it feels like a developer's word means something. It feels like there's some semblance of integrity going on here, which seems to be sorely missing these days. Consideration for the people who are helping shape your game, for the people who will be buying your game and, possibly buying more games down the line in the future. This guy, a lot of people feel, is thinking long-term and not just kind of burning a bridge between himself and the community from the outset in exchange for money. We can see right here, if you read through Reddit, just how much praise this whole situation has garnered. Now, since then, this Reddit post has gained a lot of traction, and as a result, the developer wanted to explain things further, to add further context to the situation, so he took to a news outlet called Medium to release the following article titled, "Why I Turned Down Exclusivity Deal from the Epic Store, Developer of DARQ." Here's what he said. "I had no intention of turning this into a newsworthy story, but seeing new articles coming out every day quoting what I said on Reddit, it seems that the news is very much out there. I thought I'd give you a bit more insight into what actually happened so my words aren't quoted out of context. A bit of background. I'm an indie developer, just launched my first title, DARQ. I worked on it for over 3.5 years, mostly solo, with occasional help of a few talented contractors. It was in top 50 most wishlisted games on Steam before it launched." And then he proceeded to explain what happened. "On July 27th, Saturday, I uploaded a new trailer announcing Steam launch date. On July 30th, Tuesday, I was contacted by the Epic Store proposing that I enter into an exclusivity agreement with them instead of releasing DARQ on Steam. They made it clear that releasing DARQ non-exclusively is not an option. I rejected their offer before we had a chance to talk about money." He then explains why he specifically rejected the offer. "Before I get into this, I'd like to emphasize that I'm not speaking on behalf of other developers. Every indie studio has a unique story and has to deal with a unique set of obstacles. The following reasons are mine and mine only. Rejecting such offer happened to be right for my game, but might not be right for other game studios, as their goals and long-term plans might differ from mine." So that's important to point out. There are vastly different circumstances between each studio. Some games may be struggling financially, and that Epic Store financing could bolster the development process quite a bit, helped them actually get the game out and have a sense of financial security. But in the case of this guy, he felt just in his scenario where, his game was already one of the top 50 wish-listed games on Steam, where it seemed like things were going well for him, it felt like he didn't absolutely need to go the Epic Store exclusivity route, especially because he felt that he made it pretty clear that he had every intention of releasing this game on Steam. The game's been listed on Steam for so long, and he felt as though if he were to suddenly shift gears, that would piss off a lot of people, and it would be unfair to a lot of these people who are looking forward to this game and have been looking forward to DARQ on Steam specifically. He then elaborated further with, "I like money, and getting some upfront payment on top of guaranteed revenue sounds great, but although I'm a first-time developer, I'm very serious about working in this industry for a very long time." So again, he's thinking long-term. "I had just announced DARQ release date on Steam. Pulling the game off Steam a few days after Steam release date announcement would forever ruin the credibility of my studio. I would like for my customers to have confidence that my word means something, especially when making announcements as crucial as release date and platform. Turning down the Epic exclusivity offer might have been a foolish decision in the short term, considering the amount of money that might have been involved. When thinking long term, however, this was an easy and obvious decision to make in my case. So this is commendable in my opinion. Yes, it's riskier to just release the game on Steam and not take all this money you could get from Epic, but I think having that kind of mentality of respecting your audience, respecting your community and their wishes and, what they're expecting out of your game, especially with platform and release date, having that level of consideration goes a long way in garnering people's trust. I think a studio like CD Projekt Red, that's why they're so renowned today. It took a long road for them to get to the point where they're now, but now they're in a better place than ever before. The loyalty is there, the consumer goodwill is there, so it paid off in the end to not go the scummy monetization route or to sign exclusivity deals after having promised to release the game on Steam and these other platforms. So yeah, I respect this decision right here from this developer. He kind of elaborated further on this. He said, DARQ was listed on Steam since late 2018. A lot of Steam users added DARQ to their wish list and patiently waited for its release date for almost a year. Pulling the game off Steam, especially so close to release date, would surely make a lot of DARQ fans unhappy. Agreed there. Apart from the moral issues involved, would it be worth it if given a large sum of money? Consider Amazon's history. The company remained unprofitable for many years by always putting their customers first. They had made many decisions in the past that were extremely pro-customer, even if it meant leaving money on the table, for which they got a lot of criticism from Wall Street. Now Amazon is one of the biggest companies in the world, and it's because customers know Amazon will always be on their side. Their refund policy has always been the industry standard, and their delivery promise was always fulfilled to the best of their ability. Will I make less money on Steam than I would have by accepting the financial guarantee from the Epic Store? Probably, but it's a fair price to pay for establishing an ongoing trust between my studio and its customers. Unfold Games, my studio, is here to stay, and DARQ is just the beginning. That's an excellent mindset to have. Short-term profitability doesn't lend itself to long-term reputation and goodwill. That's why sometimes it's not always good to go for the route that generates the most money. And again, it's unique per circumstance. Some indie developers, they might feel like they're in a financial state where that Epic money could go a long way. But in the case of this guy, he has a plan, he has a long-term vision to ensure that he's seen as one of the studios who are striving to be pro-consumer, who are striving to contribute to the games industry rather than kind of exploit it in some way and exploit consumers' goodwill and exploit their expectations and stuff like that. It's great to see this mentality of, I'm not abandoning the people who are supporting me. I'm putting the people first. He then added this: it was important to me to give players what they wanted, options. A lot of people requested that DARQ is made available on GOG. I was happy to work with GOG to bring the game to their platform. I wish the Epic Store would allow indie games to be sold there non-exclusively, as they do with larger, still unreleased games, Cyberpunk 2077, so players can enjoy what they want. A choice. So that's an important thing to note. As soon as the DARQ developer turned down Epic's exclusivity deal, Epic said, okay, well, you can't release your game on our store. We're not doing that yet. which to me is counterintuitive to what Tim Sweeney has been saying about how this is about some kind of crusade to improve the landscape for developers. It just makes everything Tim Sweeney has been saying in regards to his intent to make the industry better, it makes it all seem disingenuous. Vlad then concluded by talking about the contradiction between what Tim is saying about his intent to make the industry better with a multi-store future versus what he's doing now, where he's not allowing indie developers who don't go Epic exclusive to release their games on both Epic and Steam and GOG. So here's how that reads. Now that numerous media outlets made my Epic's deal rejection very public, I found myself tagged in a tweet addressed directly to Tim Sweeney. So this tweet involves Tim Sweeney congratulating Cyberpunk 2077 for having 1/3 of its PC sales going to GOG, and then added how this is more proof that the multi-store future is here now, and rather than fragmenting the PC community, GOG's Galaxy efforts are working to bring it together and unite it with console communities too. Another user then responded, if that's true, why did you want Unfold Games to be an Epic exclusive, but then refused when he offered the game to be both on Steam and Epic Game Store? A very valid question indeed. Vlad, I think, feels the same way. He said, needless to say, I never intended to become the face of the Epic Store exclusivity controversy, but since I'm tagged directly in a response to Tim Sweeney's tweet, I felt I should at least make my stance clear. I am seriously a little scared to share the following screenshot, given that Tim Sweeney has infinite monetary power and connections in the industry to completely destroy me in my game, which I trust he won't be compelled to do. I'm just a first-time indie developer after all. But here's my conversation with the Epic Store representative. It was nice, polite, respectful, professional, but it also contradicts what Tim Sweeney seems to be advocating for. So here's the email in question. It reads, from Epic, hi Vlad, thanks for getting back to us. To be clear, and since we are pressed for time, we'd be interested in bringing the game exclusive to Epic Store. We aren't in a position yet to open the store up to games that simultaneously ship. And then Unfold Games responded, I appreciate the clarification. Sadly, exclusivity is not an option at this point. We have just announced Steam release date. DARQ is now one of the most wishlisted titles on Steam, so exclusivity would surely cause a backlash. Hope we can work together in the future when exclusivity is no longer a requirement. Vlad concluded with, I wish there wasn't a double standard and indie developers were given an equal opportunity to sell their games across multiple storefronts so the players can enjoy what they seem to want the most, a choice. Indeed, he used a perfect example, Cyberpunk 2077. This is a title that is being sold both on Epic and on Steam and on GOG. This is obviously a major title with a lot of influence, which is why Epic is giving this game free leeway in terms of being able to be launched on as many platforms as possible and on Epic non-exclusively. But when it comes to indie developers, the folks who could benefit most from releasing their games on multiple platforms on Epic and Steam and GOG, Tim Sweeney and Epic are being very restrictive in a way that contradicts sentiments they have expressed in the past. I'd like to rewind time to 2016, October 2016, when Tim Sweeney tweeted this about Microsoft. And here, Microsoft is trying to steer Word users into OneDrive by deliberately inconveniencing local storage and competing cloud services. Then when asked why he hates Microsoft so much, he said, I don't hate Microsoft, I hate Microsoft's petty, anti-consumer, anti-developer decisions for which Microsoft alone is responsible for. Given what's going on with the Epic Games Store and its exclusivity deal and all these different things, all of this sure as hell looks pretty hypocritical, wouldn't you say? And then after Tim Sweeney began to pursue his Epic Games Store endeavors, all of a sudden, he's talking about how much he loves Microsoft. And then here's a tweet from April 24th, 2019. He talked about how if Steam were to match the 88% revenue cut that Epic is currently offering, he said such a move would be a glorious moment in the history of PC gaming and would have a sweeping impact on other platforms for generations to come. Then stores could go back to just being nice places to buy stuff rather than the game developer IRS. He talks about how he wants stores to just be nice places where things can be sold, and yet we're hearing reports that indie developers who do not go Epic exclusive aren't allowed to just use Epic as a nice store to sell things. Instead, they're being told it's all or nothing. You either take our exclusivity deal or you're not welcome here. Here's a rich one. Please understand that developer livelihoods are at stake in the debate about stores and exclusives and revenue sharing, the companies and the individuals alike. All of their views should be welcomed and respectfully considered. Yes, livelihoods are indeed at stake. Guess what? CD Projekt Red, if that game isn't sold on Epic, they're gonna be just fine. The DARQ developer, who is like a solo indie dev, I mean, he could really use the benefits of the Epic Games Store, and yet you're giving Cyberpunk 2077 priority over an indie developer. It seems your priorities are entirely skewed there, Tim Sweeney. Livelihoods. Yeah. This one guy's livelihood will be greatly affected by DARQ's performance because he put a lot of time and effort into this one game and, financed it by himself, seemingly. The DARQ developer is more at risk financially, and yet you're giving AAA games a pass for non-exclusivity, whereas the people who actually could use a non-exclusivity deal so they can sell their game on as many stores as possible, offer player choice, not get any backlash, and, get the best of all worlds. For these people, you're just shutting the door in front of their faces. Worth keeping in mind is that this isn't the first time something like this has happened. Here's a tweet from Megan Fox, not the actress, but rather the indie developer from Glass Bottom Game, who made a title called Skatebird. She had this to say: interesting tidbit, Epic doesn't want Skatebird. They say they're focusing on exclusives, and Skatebird promised Steam keys in its Kickstarter, therefore nah. I suppose that may change by our launch, but it seemed like an interesting data point anyways. She then talked about how, given the reception her game's been getting in terms of how many people are adding it to their wish list, she's saying she ultimately doesn't regret the decision. Now here's a statement from Mark Kern, who was a developer on World of Warcraft. He chimed in on this by saying, okay, so the devs of DARQ were approached by Epic for an exclusivity deal. They turned it down, but Epic refused to put them on the store. If true, that's not right. That's not just strong-arming customers, that is using Epic's gatekeeping power to shut out developers who don't go exclusive. Tim Sweeney actually responded to this with the following statement: "Hi Mark, we are still in the early, hand-curated days of the Epic Games Store, where we can only accommodate a small number of releases. See the launch announcement. We prioritize a small number of games that bring unique value in some way, such as exclusive games, major releases, and key indie titles. Right now, we can only accommodate about 10% of the games that developers would like to release on the store, and each criteria adds weight." A similar statement was provided to Kotaku when they reached out to Epic about this whole situation, and the response Kotaku got was this: "We work with developers and publishers on a one-on-one basis, and every situation is unique. We have a number of games from independent developers that are exclusive to our store, as well as a number of games that are available on other digital storefronts, including Steam. We have very limited release bandwidth and are definitely prioritizing games with opportunities for exclusivity and therefore significant Epic dev marketing assistance. We consider many other factors as well, so there is no set formula." So basically, Epic decides on a whim, based on their own terms, whether they accept a game exclusively or non-exclusively, and by their own admission, they're prioritizing games that bolster Epic Games Store from a marketing standpoint. It's not really about, developers' livelihoods and trying to make a better video games industry. This is all strictly business. They're basically saying that here. I refuse to believe that this multi-billion-dollar company that's raking it in from the most successful game in the world right now, Fortnite, doesn't have the bandwidth to add DARQ to their Epic Game Store listing. I do not believe for a second that they wouldn't be able to accommodate DARQ if they actually wanted to, if they actually weren't thinking from a purely business standpoint, if they actually cared about developers' livelihoods, if they actually wanted to see DARQ succeed, and if it wasn't just about them and about Epic. Keep in mind that this exclusivity deal, it was Epic that approached the DARQ developer, so Epic already thought this game had something special going for it, that it was good enough to put on their store. So, they're talking about criteria. It would seem as though DARQ met the criteria for the kind of quality that is required for a game to be featured on Epic. And yet, the only reason that DARQ isn't featured on Epic right now is because an exclusivity deal was turned down. It's got nothing to do with bandwidth or quality or criteria. It's just Epic saying, hey, you've got one of two choices. You take our exclusivity deal or get out. And it's such a scummy thing that puts everything Tim Sweeney said over the past few months about wanting to help developers, it puts all of that into question. I keep saying this, but actions speak louder than words. Developers and game makers and software developers, they keep talking about what their intentions are. All of that will ring hollow if your actions, if what you're putting forth doesn't reflect your words. Everything Tim Sweeney's saying about his crusade for a better games industry, it all looks like bullshit now. And I think the DARQ developer is very much in the right to point out the fact that Cyberpunk 2077 gets a pass on non-exclusivity, but the indie developers who actually could greatly benefit from this, who need this more than a major developer like CD Projekt Red doesn't get sympathy from the folks over at Epic. Also, what does it say about an indie developer when they're afraid to speak out? Even though Vlad didn't sign an NDA, he thinks that maybe releasing this email will mean that he's burning bridges between himself and Epic, and that given Tim Sweeney has infinite money and power and connections in the industry, that he could somehow be completely destroyed. Yeah. That's the kind of mentality that forms when you've got a multi-billion-dollar corporation having so much influence and kind of being very selective about who they choose to partner with and about strong-arming developers into taking their deal under specific conditions that Epic sets out. I don't know. For me, this circumstance right here, this bit of insight from this indie developer sharing how they felt throughout this whole process and what they feel about the way Epic is handling exclusivity and non-exclusivity. This to me is eye-opening and tells me that for Tim, this is business. This is about Epic taking over Steam as the lead store, the lead digital store. That's Tim's ultimate pursuit. It isn't the betterment of developers' lives, because if that were the case, this whole situation would have played out a whole lot differently, if you ask me. So anyway, yeah, I thought this was important to share. While you're at it, check out DARQ. You know, it seems like an interesting game made by basically one guy, and the footage that I'm seeing here, you know, it looks really, really creepy, really interesting, really cool. And a lot of people are already paying compliments to the way the DARQ developers, the developer, it's just one guy, the way he's handled all of this, you know. Although Epic rejected DARQ because DARQ wouldn't conform to Epic's mandates, I hope that ultimately the attention this is all drawn and his very respectable stance ultimately leads to his game DARQ getting more success, and that he continues this attitude and keeps developing games with this mentality, because it's something that is respectable, it's something that's very honorable, and it's something that I think will go a long way in the long run. Taking the right path is often not the most fruitful one starting out, but the destination the good path ultimately reaches is one that's more fruitful, in my opinion, than the less than ideal path where, yeah, you get short-term gains, but the destination is something ugly and something not particularly ideal. Anyway, I've said all there is to say about this whole situation. I'd love to hear what your take is on DARQ's response to all of this in the comments below. With that, I would like to end this news update and discussion video. Thank you for tuning in. To be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Yong Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Yong out.